Good morning. Today is T-7. Growing up, I always loved the number 7. 7 is heaven. 7 is celestial. And as I've gone on my journey of repenting, metanoia, or whatever the word is, to change your mind, I believe 7 is a brand of the angry God. Whoever this angry God is. It is a blood oath. Blood has to be paid. Woe unto you. Angry, angry, angry. So if you recall, we're celebrating the Easter holiday, specifically the 10 days before Easter, where Easter represents the Messiah death event. There is a lot of confusion about that because it was likely very terrible. The Romans understood that this God that sent this son was greater than all their other gods, so within 300 years they adopt this God. And Constantine in 325 calls Council of Nicaea and Nicene, and they make certain that they downplay Rome and Roman association with the Messiah death event. They're rewriting history. They want people to forget. And I talk about the anchors. I'm assuming this is the man, but it could easily be the woman. Esh means husband. Esha means woman, husband, wife. I did the quick math here. 31 minus 8 would have been 39, but I guess you're supposed to add one back or subtract one. So I concluded it was 40, but I think it's actually 38. Based on the year of the water ox, I'm pretty certain this is the date, based on the King Ming Ling. So I'm using Chinese anchors. And if you talk about the 10 hospital systems that were invited to this temple garden, China has no skin in the game in relation to the Roman, Hebrew remanufacturing of the true Messiah death event. And so, as we're moving through the Messiah death event, we have to understand the nature of God. Who is the God you worship? Is the God you worship, say something like, pure religion undefiled before God is to take care of the fatherless, and the widows? Or it's a sin to grind the face of the poor? Or does your God say, I am the greatest, worship me? So you need to decide who your God is. The Mishneh was a chief component of the temple. It's a school. Children to adults are being taught there. So that means you need to have teachers, you need to have headmasters, headmistresses. You have 12 tribes of Israel. 24 persons would be the men and women, each responsible for their tribe. You've got a barbecue event going on in the temple. And that's an assembly line. There's probably several fires on the grounds. You don't want to be burning up the intestines and the excrement right next to where you're eating. So you probably have the dogs and some fence with the garbage kind of in the back area. And then you bring forward the more pleasant meat. It partially gets boiled in water. Then it gets barbecued. A key part of the entire process is you want to remove as much blood from the animal as possible before you eat the meat. And then we have the Levites, who are specifically the guardians of the Holy of Holies, which is the Ark of the Covenant, intentionally retired. Josiah went and died on the battlefield because it seems like Necho II had worked a deal with the Levites, and down Elephantine in Egypt, they had taken the Ark of the Covenant, and Necho was using it in war. And Necho's like, I'm going to fight your enemies with it. But Necho was a plant of the Assyrians. And we have this really weird story that seems to be truncated. If you read, or if you listen to a lecture by Chuck Mises on this, he even makes note of this, that there's really something hinky going on with Josiah, which just tells you the Levites, the Masoretes, altered the story, the Deuteronomists. They did not want to be thrown under the bus as the ones that took the Ark of the Covenant out of retirement, moved it to a temple in southern Egypt, in Elephantine Island, and had a relationship with Necho II. Recall, Josiah went to a woman and said, what do we do? And he follows exactly what she does. He then goes out on the battlefield and dies, and it says, and they bring him back. Similar to kind of how they talk about Joseph's bones are brought back. So I'm assessing that Necho II had unretired the Ark of the Covenant. There were Levites with him. And Josiah comes out as the king of Judah saying, that's ours. It's supposed to go in the temple. It's supposed to be retired. And he brings it back. He dies in the process, whether because he touched it or because he was shot with arrows. There's a lot of weird stuff going on there. So as we talk about our God, my God is inclusive. My God is open source. My God is based on meritocracy. My God, if anything, is self-deprecating. I am versus I am the greatest. My God is about agency or freedom. My God is about the natural. My God is about knowledge. So my God would not use anesthesia, would not use neurotoxins to manipulate the human body. And then when we talk about the Messiah death event, some of the great prophets probably had the opportunity to suffer as the Messiah would suffer. Job gets worms eating at his flesh, likely a botfly or laura in the Guarani. Isaiah hides in a tree and gets cut in half. And there's all sorts of stories about Jeremiah and others, John the Baptist being cast into prison. But we don't have any of that with the Messiah death event. Something is amiss. Then we have nonsensical stuff. His followers did more than he did. How did they learn it? Peter flew in Rome. Who taught him how to fly? Peter was crucified upside down. In the history of the world, there were 1 million people crucified upside down, and only one person was crucified upside down, and it was Peter. You see how nonsensical that is? Paul met a king, Agrippa. Yeshua never did. Julius Caesar is likely out of the timeline. The God that I would worship would lay down life with his friends, not some condescending, I am greater than thou. So the name Yeshua could be a play on Yeye, which is what the Ishmaelites, the modern religion of Islam, calls John the Baptist. Yeye. Esh, husband. Esha, wife. So there's probably a wordplay with Yeshua, and it probably means more than one person. I estimate that the male would be the earth science teacher, and the female would be the teacher of the healing arts in this school. And so what do I mean by that? Could you take potash, sprinkle some water and blood, drop the potash, and see Isaiah chapter 1 occur? Come, let us reason together. Though your sins be red, they will all of a sudden become white. Potash is what we make ancient soap out of. So when you look at the Messiah death event, there's a lot of things hinky going on there. So then you have to back up and understand what the temple itself was, the main edifice. There were 5 menorah on the right and left, and the light of Jehovah. The Or means light. Yah is a shortened version of Jehovah. So this is very important, and I think this is where we need to start with this statement, because in the temple there were date palms. And if you understand how a date palm reproduces, there are 2 date palms. There is a male and a female. And it has no tree rings for growth. It's a very distinct, it's the national tree of Egypt and much of the Middle East. It is one of the most divine trees. And it was likely in the temple of Jehovah that builded Solomon. So why would it be in the temple? Because you would put the male on one side, the female on the other. And in the Holy of Holies, there was a cherub and then a cherubim on the left and the right of the Ark of the Covenant. And the wings touched. And then there's huge debate today what that cherub was. They obviously knew what it was anciently. It was a cow with wings. On the left would have been the heifer. On the right would have been the bullock. We loosely call it ox, but in our language, ox means castrated. And before the animal is killed for a sacrifice, it has to be without blemish, so it cannot be castrated. So that's why they would often say young bullocks were sacrificed. Yeshua was clearly castrated if you read Isaiah. Likely castrated. They possibly threw his phallus in the refrigerator. They have ice on the terrace. So there are other trees that are super important. We have the almond tree, which acacia tree is another one. And he's hanging upside down from a tree. It's not likely a palm tree. It could be. But you would have all these trees on the temple grounds as shade for the barbecue, for the people sitting and eating. It's very common. And we have no representation of the trees on the grounds. The almond tree is very important because it was associated with the rod of Aaron, which became the Levites, which was tied to the Ark of the Covenant. And it's likely tied to Mount Sinai. We got the acacia tree, sometimes called the shittim tree. And the Ark of the Covenant was made out of that kind of wood. Then gold was hammered around it to make a Faraday cage, what I call a Faraday cage. I don't know what they would call a Faraday cage anciently. That would be interesting to know. So as we move forward, we have to anchor to this idea of there seems to be a war in heaven. It seems to be about gender. And the war in heaven about gender is between an angry God and a not angry God. There's 2 systems. There's a command and control system. I choose who's next. And there's some sort of meritocracy agency system. It's all good. Everyone learns as we go. And it seems like the new system comes from an Arian point of view, from Arius out of the Constantine Nicene Council. The Son came after the Father. The Son was begotten of the Father. However, the Son is more than the Father. That's not part of the Arian view. But if you can do simple math, if I add just one male and one female and they have a child, that child must be more than the either parent. And I think in the heavens there's a way to merge the DNA of everyone to create a new child, and that new child needs to have experiential opportunities. But that new child is greater than all combined. And when I say that, I say that mathematically. So I've kind of introduced the concept of a star seed. And I guess I need the I to limit this. And you're saying, no, that's not biblical, that's not a thing. Okay, I guess it's not. So the star seeds that we have mentioned here, Arcturus is not of the south. Orion, Orion's belt, Sirius, the dog star, Pleiades, the 7 sacred cows of Egypt, the timekeepers, the 7 sisters, even though 6 are only visible with the naked eye. Arcturus, we got the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, the Big Bear and the Little Bear. Can you bind the sweet influences of the Pleiades or loose the bands of Orion? So I see the Pleiades like the big sisters that are trying to help out, but they forget that little brother is more intelligent than them all. And he knows, I guess, he or she. I see Madonna there. Interesting. Ma'adana. So anytime it says dubious, that means they have no idea. But what I see in there is the ana. Yeah, there it is. To bind, to tie. And then we have Arcturus. So I'm trying to see what Ais, Ashis. I see Yeshua in there. So let's go there. So to emphatically say I in Hebrew, you say I even I. I by itself is ani, but I even I is an emphatic I, and it's more than ani, it's anaki. Have you ever heard of Anunnaki? So ani is I. So this one doesn't have it. This is just the emphasized one. So if I always want to go to a better form of Hebrew, I always try to go to Isaiah, because it's been the least edited, because they didn't understand what he was talking about. And so when they thought they did, so there it is. Anaki. And so if I mouse over this, you're going to notice it appears twice, and then they claim it's just whatever. When you say a word twice, you're compounding it. Anaki, anaki this is the I squared. So if I were to say banana, banana, it would be the banana of all bananas. It is like the emphasis. So did we ever read that? Flesh of my flesh is how we translate it. That's not what it's saying. This is the bone of all bones. This is the flesh of all flesh. She is woman because she came out of it. It's so easy to take a invert the object and the subject, or the notion of this. A man comes out of a woman, full stop. This is suggesting that God, so which God is this that's performing a surgery, and took out of his phallus, the bone out of his phallus, and they knew this anciently. And now we have all these people going back and forth on, well, what does this mean? Out of his rib, man only has one less rib than a female. Didn't you know that? Isn't that cool? No, it was actually very literal. But if I look up the word, it means side. Okay, did you look up all of the other uses of the word? So, Adam says, this is the bone of my bones. The word there is a sem, I think. And Adam said, this is now. So he says the word twice, back to back. And then here they've added some preposition stuff. And basar, basar. So if you want to emphasize that something is a superlative, you would repeat the word. Banana, banana would be, this is the banana of all bananas. So woman is the flesh of all flesh. She is the bone of all bones. And how she was created out of the phallus bone of a humanoid, I have no idea. And, that's not hugely important to me, but Anunnaki, Anunnaki. I am eye of all the eyes. And that may imply that our mortal body here is a fraction of our celestial self. And so when you're saying I, even I, you're kind of talking about your celestial self. And it is much more than this body. I am more than this body. I am even more than this mind. A very yogi concept in our modern era. So Anunnaki, Orion, Pleiades, how does that all fit together? So, you have to go back to the Egyptians. So in the Egyptian, they have a concept of the 9 bows. So Egypt, 9 bows. And I think this is just saying 10 people were invited to this hospital planet. Okay, what does the 9 bows mean? You're giving me all this stuff. So it's saying there are 9 competitors, not necessarily enemies, but possibly enemies, plus Egypt. 9 plus 1 is 10. As I've said, Egypt was likely part of the Middle East, part of the fall. The southern part of the Middle East is where this occurred, is likely the Nubians. Nub means gold. They're from the south, which is the highlands of the Nile River. They likely built the tower at Giza, not the pyramid, the tower inside that you call the king's chamber. It is carved from granite, maybe in a natural process. And the god of the south, I think, is Amun, and he carves out, versus Kumin, who adds like potter clay with spouse. So is your god an addition god or a subtraction god? My god is an addition god. Egypt, god, Kumin, I don't know. There it is. Everyone's carrying the Ankh. Oh, look. The bullhead again, the sacred cow. Oh, that's supposed to be a ram. The Ankh, the lamad. This shape literally is the lamad in Proto-Hebrew, known for the potter's wheel. Hopefully there's a picture of him and his wife. Life force. Kaka. well or spring, the sheep, the lord of the field, shape or build. So there's this colored picture where he and his wife are on the potter's wheel building man. And so let's go to images to see if we can see it. Wikipedia apparently doesn't think it's that important. And so I think it's fun how everyone tries to put their own spin on it. I want to see what the original Egyptian marketing propaganda was. You know, all this other stuff is just the manufacturing idea of men. So let's go potter wheel. Now think about this. You read Isaiah. So this is one, but that's not the one. It's like he and his wife, that's close. They're creating humans on the potter's wheel. A potter's wheel is an additive process. You're spinning, you're adding clay. Whereas a sculpture like in ancient Rome, you start with a big block of stone and you cut stone away, you subtract. There's a classic one with the wife. It's in blue. Wouldn't it be nice if we... So it's this one. So she's there, he's there, and together, as male and female, and you would think on the potter's wheel they would have a male and a female. And so, you know, the bone-in phallus, the large phallus, I don't know if that was always a thing, or if that was a group of the mythologies of the Egyptians. I don't know if the Egyptians is a history or a myth, or if it was prophecy and prediction, or was it both? And so Egyptologists, so there's a good one. So it's not big. Yeah, semen. That's funny. The battle between Set and Horus. So the Ankh is a very important symbol. It represents the Thoth symbol, and represents wisdom, represents time, etc. But this is a useful one because I'm assuming there's a male and female here on this, and the male and female are creating them collaboratively. So is your God a God of addition or subtraction? So we have 10 star seeds, maybe 12. You know, I'm not opposed to it, but I look at my hands, and everywhere in Revelation it says the 12 stars surrounded the woman about to give birth, and so it must be 12. No, those are one of the easiest things to edit out to fit in your narrative, and the Masoret's narrative is the 12 tribes of Israel is everything. That's not inclusive. It's very exclusive. What is that? Exodus 19:6. Don't marry outside the covenant because we're a peculiar nation. We are superior, American, exceptional. Oh, I'm sorry, Hebrew exceptionalism. And then you read the lineage of where Yeshua supposedly came from. He came from Tamar and Judah married outside of the house of Eber. So there's just huge irony everywhere. So likely there's 10 star seeds. They were the continents. They were intentional pillars or columns of the cardinal directions to be borders, because you're in a hospital setting. You don't want any war, you don't want any intermingling, because maybe these people don't get along. And an inclusive God is going to invite all the injured to come there. And it seems like 10 star seeds would be the summation of all of them. But those 10 star seeds may have, subsystems, etc. So they could invite whoever they want in their system. This is the concept of a tree and a forest of forests, which is what I'm going to call the 10 star seeds. So do we have any metaphors about grafting in trees, about the tree of life, of good and evil and knowledge? We have all these tree metaphors. And the tree is fundamentally a family. That is a male and a female with children in this earthly frame. And I've shown last time what that looks like in the Chinese. Human plus 10, where the heavens and Middle Earth connect, you create children. Okay, so we have Anunnaki, so let's look at Enlil. Is Enlil the good guy or the bad guy? Enlil causes the flood, so does that mean he's the good guy or the bad guy? Well, it depends. If someone's about ready to drop nukes to desolate the entire earth, and then you drop the ice from the firmament to cause a flood before the nukes hit, are you the good guy or the bad guy? The number 4 in Chinese means destruction, when the 4 pillars of heaven collapsed and the firmament collapsed and death came. But what happens if you were doing that because something worse was coming? So notice the names of his parents. Anunnaki, I, even I. And Enki, who I would call Inky. So Inky is right there too. Instead of Anunnaki, it would be Inky. But Inky here in this website is given the name of Ayen, I believe. And seemingly, Enki and Enlil are at odds with each other. Enlil is the wild bull. Oh, we have the bull. Do we have any religions of the world that honor and venerate the bull? Egypt did. And Egypt called the sisters of Pleiades the sacred cows, which is different than the bulls. And they were supposed to be the timekeepers, or like the guardians. So when things went sideways, I think they're like the older sisters that came and started to meddle. They started to try to help. But they weren't invited to help. They were invited to be the timekeepers. That was their job. And in the ancient Hebrew, or in the ancient Egyptian, you have a lot of mention of hundreds, if not thousands, of gods, which aligns with what the continent of Ganga has. Enlil was part of a triad of deities with An and Enki, which is interesting. Those are 3 men, and An is father. These are 2 brothers. But what happened to... So Namu is supposed to be the primeval sea, gave birth to An and Ki, so a brother and a sister, Anunnaki. And in this situation, it is Mother Earth. Some traditions have Father Earth and Mother Sky, and that could just be a foundation of which starseed they are. And so is this story about this earth, and is this story about heaven? Or is it all one and the same? Or are they in a hospital, they're under anesthesia, and they're remembering a creation story from another world? All of that fits in this concept of who came here. That if you're in a hospital, maybe you remember what's going on here, that this hospital got bombed, this house of healing got war came to it. And so what would happen if that were the case? You would first evacuate everyone that you could. Enter Enoch, Metatron, for those of you that follow different things. The city that disappeared, the city of Atlantis, that supposedly sunk into the sea but vanished. Operation Evac, get everyone off the planet that doesn't want to be there. We've now entered a war game, the battle for Middle Earth. Those that want to be here, do your worst. Who's the strongest in this battle of the good guys? It's Ganga. They know how to do war, so that possibly means in their past lives and whatever, they're very good at it. They know how to do commerce. So who is Ganga? The Ganga River is one of the most sacred places on earth. It's named after a goddess. And you're going to notice in general traditions, the males are blue and the females are white or black skinned. I think the darker the skin, the more power they have. And so the trinity of the Gangan peoples would be Brahma with his spouse, Vishnu with his spouse, and Shiva with his spouse. So that's a trinity of 6 humans, or 6 goddesses, or devis, or demigods, or however you want to put them in the hierarchy. But what's interesting about this story is she falls in love with a mortal man. And she goes to Brahma and she's like, this guy likes me. He met me down by the river. And the descent of Ganga. And he fell in love with me, and we're gonna have some children and have a relationship, which is Genesis 6, but in reverse. It's a female mating, a female from the heavens mating with a male from the earth. And so this is the story. They meet here. And when she talks to Brahma, he's like, fine, but if you have a child, you have to drown it in the river. But notice what happens. The 8th child survives. And some claim that the 8th child was really good at holding its breath, and this 8th child became a prince of the land. So when I'm talking about 7 and 8, it seems like 7 is the blood oath of the earth that must be answered. And then 8 is the gift oath from the heavens. So for whatever reason, there's some justice law thing that says 7 must be answered. And so the nature of 7 determines which god you worship. Oh, it must be answered. You have to do it because I say so. When Ganga went to Brahma, the chief god, she said, I'm in love with this man. And Brahma's just like, okay, the rules are you need to drown all your children. So she drowned her first 7 sons. And whether he came to rescue or the baby held its breath a long time and she thought it was dead, the 8th son lived. But I think that is just a personification of the meaning that once the number 7 was answered for, the 8th was a gift. So the stories are trying to say that the man somehow rescued the 8th child or the 8th child saved himself. I'm just saying the 8th child lived because it was the 8th child. So then we look at on the 8th day, a child in the Hebrew tradition is presented at the temple. If it's a male, After 40 days, which is 8 times 5, the woman is clean. If it's a female, it's 80 days. And in some cultures, people will not announce the birth of their child until either 40 or 80 days has hit, even though it's kind of associated with the 8-day rule. Because on the 8th day, if you give a lotus birth, on the 8th day, the umbilical cord likely falls off. So that just kind of tells you that a natural birth, the mother sits with her child, feeds the child, the placenta, the umbilical cord, nothing is cut. But naturally, after 8 days, the umbilical cord falls off, the child is okay. In ancient America, what would happen when a mother was giving birth is the man would go sit in a hammock and just be as lazy as could be during the birth. When the 8th day happened, he's still sitting in the hammock. So he's sitting in the hammock for 10 days or more. And then once the 8th day happens, the umbilical cord falls off. A woman, so in a lot of traditions, men are not part of the birth process at all. They don't see any of the hidden parts of the woman during birth. And so let's say on the 8th day, someone delivers the umbilical cord to him. He'll throw it up in a tree around a branch or something, and he'll sit there for another 8 to 10 days. And then he'll determine, does a bird come and eat the umbilical cord, or does it just dry up? And if a bird comes and eats it, he thinks it's a bad omen that the child may not have a long life or something. But there's something important there. So Daniel, we have a party of 10 people. 7 versus 3. 3 seem to leave. If you read Daniel carefully, he would go fast for more than a month. And so this is where the 40 days comes in. If you think from astrological reasons, the moon is influencing your decisions. If you fast for more than 30 days, you've been through 2 moons. So your decision isn't as influenced. And I misspelled 2 words there. The 10-day week is embedded in that fasting of Daniel, if you read it carefully. Before he visits an angel, he says 3 weeks are completed, plus a couple days or something. But when he says 3 weeks, he means 30 days. He doesn't mean 7 days. So, what is the history of the 7-day week? 100 AD. Now, how does that relate to the Messiah death event and your understanding of Good Friday, and Palm Saturday, and Sunday, and Easter Sunday? It's all fiction. Look at your hands. How do you have a 7-day week there? A fortnight used to be 15 days. 15 times 2 is 30 days. It's now 14 days. The Ides of March, et tu, Brute, was the 15th day. They would go to the middle of the month, they would count up, and then they would count down. 15th is the middle. So our modern moon has a cycle of, 28.11 days? And so, divide that by 4, and now we have a 7-day. That's tied to the moon. What is the greater light, the moon or the sun? That is the whole problem, is your calendar should be a solar calendar. The moon is currently out of sync. At some point, we had a 360-day year and a 30-day moon in sync. I'm not going to sing in sync. The heavens and the earth moved. We now have a 365.2422 plus or minus. We don't know what that standard deviation is. And we have a moon cycle of 28.11 days or something. This is just more evidence that we're in a black hole. There was some sort of collision. Maybe it was the inner asteroid belt used to be a smaller planet and collided with the Earth. Possibly caused the firmament to fall and crash. You know, there's all sorts of possibilities. The possibilities, we'll just be told one day what actually happened. Does it matter? The purpose of today is to understand that this number 7 is an invention of the Romans. And I think it was an invention of the Romans in collusion with the Hebrews. But what happened is Constantine's Roman Catholic Church took off, and the Masoretes are left standing holding their hat. But wait, there were 7 days of creation. Really? When was this written? Okay, in the beginning of creating the heavens and the earth, it's different than what that says. And God said, Adin, 1. And he saw it was good. And he called, and God said, 2, Dava. And God said, 3, 3. And God said, 4, Chatiri. And God said, 5. Notice what it says, seasons. And God said, 6. Where was I? Chess. Did I skip pet? I got it. I can't switch language. Adin. Dava. 3. Chatiri. Pet. I can't think. 6. 7. Oh, look, on the 7th day he created the ox, the cow, that gets cut up and killed to answer the oath of the earth. 8. Oh, there's 8 days of creation. 9. Oh, I'm sorry, it was 6 days because there was a day of rest. So look at your hands. You got 10 fingers. There's probably, the thumbs are probably the days of rest. There's probably a day of rest for the female and a day of rest for the male. And so on the day of rest for the female, the man's doing all the honeydew jobs, and on the day of rest of the male, the female is submitting to the man. Creates great equality. No, there's 6 days. God said at least 9 times, and I didn't count that carefully. No, it's 6 days of creation and 1 day of rest. Where does that come from? If you go back to all the ancient calendars, and by that ancient calendars I mean any calendar before the Messiah death event, you're going to have pentads and decans. 5 and 10 day divisions of time. Before the MDE. So the Chinese have a lot of calendars. The one that I believe would have been most appropriate is called the 4-pillar calendar. Remember, they said the number 4 is death, the 4 columns collapse, and I believe that was their flood story. So let's see if we can find some of that. Okay, so let's search for flood China. So if you want to see about the ark before Noah, that's this guy. The age of the pyramids and the aging, the Hebrews manipulated the dates, likely manipulated the genealogy because they wanted to say all of their people were good. The Chinese. So this is a nice introduction. This guy does the a walkthrough as a non-Chinese speaker on the radicals of Chinese and how they make up information. He's the one that found an ancient scripture about the flood. And so these 3 videos are really nice videos. So the flood, the number 4, death, all of that's there. So the word for oath, so the word for covenant is literally in Hebrew means to cut the meat. So that's the purpose of the barbecue. Come, let us eat together. Berat. And look at that. Cut down. So is that a language problem? The B and the K got... so an agreement between people, literally the cutting of meat. So we have the covenant, which is literal meaning to cut the meat. We have the oath. So Yeshua talks about a new covenant. That means the old one has to go away, and everyone wants to think that was the law of Moses, whatever. No, this is the war in heaven thing going on. There was this old angry God, there's a new loving God. The old angry God had all these rules and punishments, and the new God is like, it's all good. As long as you don't grind the face of the poor and exploit other people, everything you learn is not a sin. So the word oath is right there. Sheba. Bathsheba, the queen of the oath. I'm sorry, Bathsheba is the daughter of the oath, the queen of Sheba. So we have no idea who these persons were. Bathsheba in modern Hebrew means Jane Doe. Like, we don't know. So it's definitely a sh sound here. We've got the dot, Shebuah, the oath of Jehovah. So a curse is a different kind of oath. Now I think about oath like I think about the movie based on the J.R. Tolkien books. Honor all the oaths you have taken. It's still a choice. You're not bound. There's no bondage. There's no chain. There's no ball and chain. Everything you choose to do is because you gave your word you were going to do it. So look at what this says. Literally, Shabbat means to seven oneself. Now, in my estimation, 7 is the bondage oath. 8 is the freedom oath. 8 is I choose to do it. I understand what the bondage oath is. I reject the bondage oath, but I do something, not necessarily what the bondage oath required, but I do something that I feel is honest, that is in similarity or correlation to the requirements of the bondage oath, but I'm doing it in a transcended form. 8 is transcension. Let's make them do it is 7. And if they don't do it, we'll kill them all. And 8 is, as long as you learn from this situation, whatever the outcome is, we all were put on this earth to die. We're all going to die. So what can you take with you? I'm going to go to the judgment bar and say, I did everything. So this is kind of the, by grace or by works are you saved. 8 has works embedded in it. But what you're saying is I'm transcending anything about bondage. If you're forcing me to do anything. So 7 is bondage. It's contracts, formal requirements, and so on. When Yeshua is approached by a woman that supposedly has a husband that dies and that gets married again, and he answers, what is that? Is that Mark 6? Mark 12, maybe? The 12 sent out. Why not the 10 sent out? So maybe it's Mark 12. I'm trying to think of what keyword to search for now. Yeah, so this is perfect Roman propaganda. Render to Caesar that thing that is Caesar's, and to God things that are God's. And they marveled at him. So this is just Constantine's propaganda that Rome is the good guy here. Pontius Pilate washed his hands. If a man's brother dies and leaves, now there were 7 brothers. So notice the number 7 is embedded in here. So what's being said here is a marriage is a contract. And as a contract, it is tied to a form of bondage. So can you have relationships with people of other people and possibly even have children with them? Of course. Do you have to formalize some contract to do so? 8 is transcending. You don't abandon the mother if you're a male. You don't abandon the children, but you're transcending the nature of the contract. So in most legal systems today, the state then meddles when the divorce occurs. And in ancient times, that was what the Jewish government would do as well. They would meddle into the divorce and who is at fault? Does someone need to die? Where do the children go? This is how an institution, a cabal, can control the masses. And if you think about what that is in modern family court, the husband and the wife, they're angry at each other. That's why they're getting divorced. So the husband goes to a lawyer, and the lawyer's like, she's going to take half of all you got. So give me a retainer of $30,000, and I'll make sure it doesn't happen. He burns the $30,000, says, yeah, she has rights to all that. She still gets half. So are they exploiting the pain of these two parties that are dividing, that are choosing to separate? And then if you think about how that money is associated with children, is that not just putting the child on a slave block at auction and having money being the determination. So now we have 7. And I think what he's saying here is angels don't have contracts. Angels have oaths. Angels can do whatever they want. There's no formal contract. So the marriage contract was deeply embedded in Mosaic law. So does that mean angels don't get married? What I'm saying is the heavens, the number 8, is transcending. You still can have relationships with men, women, whatever you want to have a relationship with and possibly have children with in the heavens. I would think that would happen. How can Genesis 6 happen here on earth if Genesis 6 can't happen in the heavens? But the thing here is the word contract. So there's a difference in my mind. So I would say 7 is more to contract and 8 is more to oath. So oath is, I'll do my best. My word is my bond. I'll move forward. I'll try my best. But if Yeshua thought that about marriage contracts, he wasn't aesthetic. So think about what they did. The Hebrews knew that to be the Messiah, he would have had to have been a rabbi, which means he would have had to have been married and likely with children. The Romans wanted to disassociate him from family altogether, likely all because of the Messiah death event. So this is where the monastic, the celibate, and all that's coming from Paul, right? So that makes you think about what kinds of amorous relationships Yeshua was having during the time of his life leading up to the MDE. So it seems like Mary Magdala was his traveling companion. And we don't know about these names fully. And it seems like there's 2 instances where, so I'm going to call this the beloved disciple. So in the Gospel of Mary Magdala, she kisses Yeshua on the mouth, and Peter is not happy with this public display of affection. They're exchanging spittle. So to some degree, they're exchanging DNA at a very simple form. You don't have to kiss someone to exchange DNA. You can drink from a water bottle, they can drink from a water bottle. You've exchanged DNA. And then supposedly after the resurrection, Peter is fishing, they haven't caught anything, and Yeshua is already prepared a meal of fish cooked on the fire for them. I don't know that he prepared it. Pretty sure Mary prepared it, because Peter again goes, oh, the beloved disciples here. Like, what's he or she doing? So to change someone from he to she is not a big deal. I've thought a lot about maybe one of these Marys is the Gospel of John. But the Gospel of John really has a weird introduction about the Baptist. So I'm now thinking, so anyway, the point is, for a woman to write a gospel, it's not going to be accepted. So you just change a bunch of he's and she's and you can make that happen. What does Bethany mean? Bet, house. Ani means I or my. Mary of my house. So this, in classic tradition, I would call his traditional wife. And Mary's sister was Martha, the sister. And if you want to put wife there, you can do that. So in my estimation, there were 3 polyamorous relationships. Mary of Bethany is very interesting because Yeshua tarried, according to the tradition we have. And then he raises Lazarus from the dead. And Lazarus being raised from the dead is going to be a huge problem for both the Romans and the Hebrews, because it's a witness. Everyone, how many people knew this person was dead, and he's not dead, and he's walking around eating lunch with Yeshua on the temple grounds. But when he gets to the house, he calls forth, according to the traditional tradition. And Martha comes out and says, if you would have been here, you would have lived. Mary doesn't come out of the house. From my understanding, under Jewish law, if a woman is in mourning, even if the master of the house, her husband, calls her forth, because again, this is him literally saying, Mary of my house, she doesn't have to come out if she's in mourning. According to Jewish tradition, maybe I'm incorrect. The only time it says, and Jesus wept, is when she finally came out. Yeshua looked at her face, saw her torment, and it says, and Jesus wept. So, how can we uncover the Messiah death event if you're not going to even believe that Yeshua had at least one polyamorous relationship and had children, likely with Mary of Bethany? This was his house. This is likely where the children were kept. So at the Messiah death event, and again, we've got way too many Marys. We got a Salome here and there. So now I have 3 French hens. And I'm going to call them the polyamors. And this would put the person we call Mary of Bethany as the woman that gets tortured so much and dies after Yeshua. Did the other 2 die? Probably. And with the Messiah death event, then we have other Marys. We have Mary, the mother of Jesus. And we have other mothers. So how many other mothers are here? Well, Mary Magdalene has a mother. Mary of Bethany has a mother. Martha would have the same mother, most likely. So we'd have 3 to 4 mothers. There's 4 mothers somehow. And it could be the mothers of Mary, the mother of Jesus. I don't know. Mary, the mother of Jesus, she's the one that has some sort of immaculate conception, which, in my estimation, somehow means 2 mothers created and cared for her. But if you understand what the Messiah death event is supposed to be, which is a human, a male and a female would die, there needs to be 2 other mothers that were similarly tied to the birth of Yeshua's spouse, which we're calling Mary of Bethany, but might not be her name. So if you remember, the Abraham story was likely Sarah, the bitter one, was the descendant of Noah. Remember, Enoch evacuated everyone that wanted to leave. Noah went on the battle march. He got on a boat to save whoever wanted to go with him. The 8 were saved. Those of the God oath, of the good oath. Those that have transcended the blood oath and the death and the destruction oath of this world. they got on an ark, however many there were. And it seems like Sarah is a descendant there. We're supposed to believe Abraham is the uncle through a brother, which is correct if you understand and follow how that tree would look like. That is correct. It's okay, meaning it says, a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave unto the new tree of the woman. So if Abraham did marry the daughter of one of his brothers, and you follow the tree line of the women, he has not violated the tree by procreating with his own mother's tree. But if you follow the logic, it's very possible that that may have occurred, so the new law would just say, forget it, it's all game. Whenever, the new system, the transcended system, is fewer rules. But my estimation is that Abraham was a dropship. So what that means is he was a star seed, came to earth, married one of the locals, Genesis 6. But he was commissioned to do so. He was a mortal father, willing to sacrifice his mortal son to somehow answer justice, the laws of 7. And it could have been that he was a dropship. It could have been that Sarai was not a clean vessel. And so Isaac wasn't a perfectly clean, because remember, Sarai means bitter, right? She was 99 years old. So I don't know what the situation was, but regardless, the sacrifice was not acceptable for the old system. An angel appears and says, don't kill your son Isaac. And people want to paint that however they want, but the reality is Abraham was preparing to kill his son. A mortal father was preparing to kill a mortal son as a sacrifice to the gods, God, someone, and an angel interrupted and said, don't do it. So now, if you need to up your game and have a larger sacrifice, you need to make sure that both Yeshua and the spouse are of a perfect seed. Purebloods, racist, but it seems like racism is part of the oath of 7. It's got to be a pureblood. The oath of 8 is, it's all good. Love is love. And so with the oath of 7, that would mean Yeshua would have had to have been a pureblood. His spouse had to be a pureblood because on earth, Yeshua was the mortal father that sacrificed his mortal son, Judas Iscariot, little Judah. And at the same time, it was a mortal son being sacrificed by a celestial father. So this was answering the old system 7 and creating the new system 8. But because of the gender inequity, the death of the spouse had to also be pure. Because if Yeshua was the father but died before he fulfilled his commitment, he was a failure at being the Messiah, and his son was not the failure of being the Messiah. So Yeshua's son was the one that met the true definition of the old system of the Messiah. And since his spouse suffered all of the tortures she was given, she was also greater than Yeshua. So Yeshua was submissive. He failed twice. He failed with his son was greater than him. He failed with his spouse was greater than him. But the genius of that is, now that he's a failure, he can go to a place, spirit prison, as the failure and introduce the new system. He's got his spouse and his son in heaven on his side. He's got the all-mothers and the all-fathers on his side. The only group not on his side are the 7. So by him doing this, the score is now 7 versus 99. Everyone else is on his side. The 7 are still the holdouts. Now, who are those holdouts? So you have to answer to the 7. No longer, because of the Messiah death event, you don't have to answer to the 7, except Yeshua, because he failed, is in that spirit prison. But guess what he can do in the spirit prison? Have you read Isaiah? Isn't the goal to save everyone? How do you save everyone if there's people trapped in hell, which is the Greek concept of Hades, or Sheol, the deep pit? How do you save everyone? Is you have to send an emissary, a plant, a spy, that according to the rules of 7 is a failure, so he's now trapped. But now, because he's down there, he can save everyone. He's a hook to reel everyone up. And so Yeshua was likely, during the Messiah death event, he was likely drugged with hyssop, likely stung by scorpions and snakes and everything. And so he's got this fear going on. And so somehow he was afraid, and he internally or whatever. So it seems like Yeshua. Let me just say Yeshua for the Father, and little Judah were able to communicate without speaking. Probably part of the Andromedan capabilities, the ability to telepath, to speak through the minds. And if you think about where our words come from, it seems like somehow we got some sort of internal telepath with maybe our greater self. So it seems like certain words had to be said under the old oath. Why have you forsaken me? But if you think the old oath is a joke, you might make fun of this. Don't tell mama. And whether the father or the son says that, and then something about I am afraid. And, obviously if you've got neurotoxins from scorpion bites and other things in your body, there's going to be a fear factor there. And so whether it's said, spoken or not, that would have led to rendere mi corazón, which in Isaiah is melt my heart. Isaiah chapter 24 maybe. My heart is melting. In Spanish, rendere mi corazón literally means explode my heart, break my heart open. So if Yeshua is the failure, and the Son saves Yeshua on earth through his death, which is the Judas Iscariot silver lottery, falling, little boy blue, getting hung, and then his body falling and his brain splatting all over the temple grounds. That happened to save Yeshua, because Yeshua is in this anesthesia state. He's got all these drugs in his body, these neurotoxins. He's crying out internally, rendere mi corazón. But if he fails, then the whole system fails. But if the Son saves him first, then everything's fine. And then don't tell mama seems to be one of the requirements, which has caused the war in heaven and the division between the genders to begin with. So somehow all of that's playing out, but Yeshua fulfills all righteousness by allowing his Son to be the Savior. He's saying, my Son is greater than me. He's also saying, my spouse is greater than me. He's dealt with the legacy required system of 7, and he's transcending it to 8. The bosom, the good oath, or the God oath. I have to say good oath because 7 is likely a God oath of a type, but it's kind of the angry oath. So this is the angry oath. This is, woe unto you, You sinners, you're going to all die, burn in hell. And this is the good oath. Everything you learn in this descended state, it's all good. It's all for your benefit. Please don't steal from the poor, right? That's really what Isaiah chapter 1 says. So James chapter 1, blessed is the man that endureth temptation. It's a choice. It's not, woe unto you if you can't. Every good gift, the Father of lights. The Father of lights. Woman is light. Man is shadow. In a mortal state, we are all shadows of our greater selves. Be doers of the word because you've transcended. You choose to be a doer of the word. Through liberty, you're choosing to do that. It's interesting that it says before God and the Father. So the opposite of visiting the widows and the fatherless, yeah, that's really hard to decouple that. Isaiah 1 goes through the great sins. The ox knows his owner. So this is talking about the era of probably 600 BC, where all the outer parts of the village of the daughter of Zion, representing the city of Jerusalem with its walls, it's besieged. Everything has fallen around it. The sin is the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah, which we've associated with the sin of sin related to sex, but it's not. It's the relationship of exploiting the poor. I'm tired of your offerings. Notice what's first. The bullocks. I'm tired of your new moons. For some reason you forgot the sun is the greater light. You forgot that you have 9 festivals every 40 days. Those festivals have no alignment with the sun, but for whatever, or with the moon, but for whatever reason, you've decided to create the moon thing. I don't know if the number 7 is embedded here. Isaiah talks about 7 in Isaiah chapter 4. Come, let us reason together. So, see, when I read this, there's something hinky here, because this is forcing obedience. It's an if-then statement. If you do not eat good of the land, that means you weren't obedient. That's the counter-positive. And so, to what degree was Isaiah in the original before, when it wasn't written in this broken post-exilic Hebrew? So it's basically saying thy princes are rebellious and companions of thieves. So the people that are wealthy are using their wealth to get more wealthy by stealing from the poor. They mix water with their wine. They water down the wine. They take the products offered to the poor, and they make them less and less and make them pay more and more. Inflation. Why? It's so that the princes have nicer palaces. And that was the sin of 600 BC. You've become a harlot. So what is a harlot? A harlot is exchanging a goods, some sort of good or service, sex, for money. So you're watering down the wine for money. You're a harlot. All you care about is the money. And so as a result, so this is about 600 BC. Isaiah is speaking 700 BC, but he's saying in about 100 years, the city's going to fall. He tried to give the king advice on Ephraim is confederate with Assyria, and you're going to lose your beard, but the king wouldn't listen to him. He says, you'll have a child, you'll be a good child, Hezekiah. Hezekiah's mother was the daughter of one of the high priests, and maybe that's how Isaiah knew that she was with child, but she was a virgin betrothed, but they had consummated the relationship and she was pregnant. Ahaz, when he finds this out, when the child's born, sends the child through the fires of Molech, tries to burn the child alive. Supposedly the child is embalmed with a holy oil, likely grapeseed oil, goes through the fire and survives. When it talks about oak, it could be an oak tree, but oak is strong, but it also refers to cows, specifically bulls. The oaks of Bashan is a location where they raised cattle, bulls. And if you read carefully, we have the same widows and fatherless here. When it says, judge not the fatherless, neither does the cause of widow come unto them, that's not a good rendering of what is being said. Sapat isn't judge the fatherless. So the word is shafat. To plead for the fatherless. That's what James said. James was citing Isaiah, probably. So the cause, arib, so remember the case of the unjust judge. So are you making certain that the widow, so in a community, the princes want a nice palace, but that money is supposed to feed the widows. Right, so this is the society of the day, and then people want to associate this, and it shall come to pass in the future that the mountain shall be established in the top of the mountains. What? Right, there's just something hinky going on, and you need to understand, Isaiah wrote this 700 BC. 600 BC, they go away, and then the great scroll of Isaiah we have is from 100 BC, written in the new language, in this broken, modern Hebrew language. So at some point, a scribe had to take the old form of Hebrew, which looked very much like Egyptian, and had to write it in this new style. Where and when did that occur? A big group were taken into Babylon, but another group fled into Egypt. And so if they fled into Egypt, they still spoke the original Hebrew form that was closer to Egyptian than Babylonian. Jeremiah flees into Egypt. So we know that some of this was altered because this script right here is not the script Isaiah wrote in. And so someone had to translate it. So what's interesting is Sodom and Gomorrah. Gomorrah is not even a word in our language. But here's the oaks of Bashan. So the cedars of Lebanon. Lebanon was known for its cedar trees, for its forests. And the oaks of Bashan can refer to the actual tree, or it can also refer to the cattle that came from that region. The cattle that graze there. Bull with wings. So there's a modern brand Red Bull gives you wings, right? The bull with wings, the Red Bull. So let's see if we have a picture of a cherub with a bull with wings. Oh, that's Akkadian. That can't be it. So the temple, the inner sanctum of the temple, had two bulls with wings, where their wings were touching, and below them was the Holy of in the Holy of Holies was the Ark of the Covenant. So then we have this strange thing about something with 4 faces, this seraphim having 6 wings. There's just something hinky going on. The Ark of the Covenant was like a cedar chest. The 2 cherubs were sitting on the 2 edges, and one of their wings was tucked, and the other wing was open. So that was the back of the chair for 2 people to sit. So everyone wants to depict the Ark of the Covenant like this. You can't sit on this. But if one of the cherubs is sitting here on this edge, the other is sitting here, and one of their wings is closed, and their other wing is open, there's a back to the chair, just like a cedar chest. So it's interesting. So 8 answers 7 and more. 7 is the angry oath. So in this country, look at all the branding. 7-Eleven, Lucky 7. Seven represents mystery, and I think that's where I'll finish. I don't think those are, like, that one's Western numerology. So I don't know that I would believe that one. Do I have... What is the etymology of mystery? So 7 is clearly tied to mystery. Everything comes from the Greek. Right. Everything comes from the Egyptian. In our Western language. I don't know about the Chinese. So, did we get Egyptian to load? It's still loading. So we got lucky 7, lucky... So we have unlucky 13. We don't have 13th floors in this country. I don't think they have 7th floors in China. So they just skip the numbering of the floors. The 4th floor is the death number. They omit all 4 floors with 4 in it. So that's all tied to the flood. August 8th at 8:08. And that was the Chinese Olympics, because 8 is a very lucky number. 4 means death. The 4 pillars of heaven fell. 5 is the answer to the universe, not 42. Yeah, 7, this is an unlucky, ghostly. It's death. It's a different kind of death. The gates of hell. Still loading. So, secret oaths in darkness, burning books, which is controlling information. These are the actions of 7. What's the opposite of secret oaths in darkness? Open communication in the light. I am a child of light. Destroy nothing. All knowledge is good. So this is transcending to 8. Oh, but this is a secret recipe about how to make chaos and to kill people and to create a cabal. Well, if the people that run the cabal know that information, but you don't, you have what's called information asymmetry. So if you don't believe in that, you create symmetry in information by showing your cards. If you're playing a game, you show the cards. There's no secrecy there. The reason I like the game of chess is it's the game of perfect information. If someone beats me, they just see more than I do. They make better moves and they see more. But if there's something secret going on and I don't know what's occurring, then it's not a game of meritocracy, it's a game of chance. And it forces people to try to be sneaky and dark, try to play shadow games. So let's see if we can find mystery. Let's just search there. How about hidden? I'm using a slow computer, so this might not work very well. Anyway, mystery is a Hebrew or an Egyptian word. It means hidden or secret. I've gone a lot longer than I have in the past ones. Keb. Is it Keb or kept? So we have a lot in that. Something hidden. You can see the same stem. It's either a het or hep or kept. Utau, a group of gods that hide arm, hidden chambers, shatat. Is not the same sound as Ankh. Amen, the hidden god. Amen Ra, the hidden god Ra. Double hidden. So yeah, notice that. You just say a word twice. It doesn't mean doubly hidden. It means the hiding of all hiding. Like banana, banana. Secret, mysterious. So hidden didn't get me there. Maybe mystery. Keriut. Knowledge. So Keri seems to be mystery as well as Amen, and that reminds me of Kuman, the different gods. I'm trying to see what that entry was, which is the previous page. Ray. Chapter of a book. I don't know how the alphabetization of this dictionary works. Is it ME and then MI? And maybe it wasn't here. Maybe it was in the Hebrew that I read it. The mysteries of God. For surely the Lord God will do nothing. Let's look that up real quick. So when I see Lord God here, is this Jehovah or the angry God? They clearly merged all of that into one God. Reveal, Gala, to uncover, to disclose, to make naked. Think about the Garden of Eden. Who told you were naked? So they were naked. That's sold, so that's a different symbol for S than the other one. Just tells you the language is broken. It's a secret council. I think what this is saying is I will disclose everything from the council. Was that council a secret council in heaven? And you're the one going off and telling everyone about it? So this is interpreted as prophets, but Navi is just those that are set apart. So if you think about the Nazarene, the Nazi, they are a form of the Nabi. And so when I have a concern with that, what did it say before the Masoretes got their hands on it? He reveals his teachings to his servants, the prophets. So that is the word prophet. What did prophet mean in? So the spirit of prophecy is a testimony of Jesus. So it's only men, apparently. How about a human filled with the Spirit of God? How about a poet? The school of the prophets. Revelation. How about the spirit of prophecy? Anna the prophetess in the Mizne, when Yeshua appears, holds him up and says, "This is the Son Messiah." the prophetess, female. So this is Pauline thought, where he took whatever the original revelation was and made it in his Pauline form, Paul, making it more palatable for the Greeks in the Constantine world. So before Yeshua was a thing, what is the spirit of prophecy? It's a testimony of things from heaven. That's what it would be in the generic sense, the spirit of prophecy. And so the school of the prophets was the Mizne. It had prophetesses and prophets. Miriam the prophetess, Deborah the prophetess, Huldah. So this is Hilkiah going to Huldah. Remember, didn't Josiah also go to Huldah? Who did Josiah go to when his thing went down? She lived a long time. Yeah, she's called the keeper of the wardrobe. She dwelt in the Mizne. She was a prophetess. A prophet would be a male, a prophetess would be a female. These are the teachers in the school of the prophets. And Josiah listens to every word that she speaks. And the concept of misogyny and all that was not a local thing at that time. It got added in. So let's see if we can find Meest here. Balaam, a mistress. Baalam. Deborah, Gibara. That sounds like Deborah. Lady mistress. Yada. Yada yada yada. Is that a yod or is that a yod? Interesting. Ani, even I, seems to mean the poor. Anan, Anunnaki. So anyway, that just flashed in my eyes as I was doing this search. So there it is, the bowl. Shore. Also means mountain or wall. Strange. Lots of by mistakes. I don't know that I wanted that. How about secret? To secrete. Interesting. Kadesh. A secret storehouse. Matmon. Isn't that what Joseph would have built? With the grain? There it is. 4565. The Mista lady. H there.
Strong's H 4565.
4565.
Mistar.
Mistar.
I wonder where the word mystery came from. Sathar. So you can see how the M is now gone in the primitive. So the primitive is Sathar. So it's like mi Sathar, and then part of it gets truncated. So mi might be like place of hiding. Mi might be a stem to mean place. To catch the boar. It catches the boar and draws them in his net. Remember, the net is tied to the Messiah death event. So if you love wealth, that's not a good thing. Oh, but God has blessed me. I'm so wealthy, and I'm wealthy because of God. That means you're not living a very interesting life. If everything is easy, you're not learning much. Right? You learn by pushing the boundaries, by stretching your understanding of knowledge and life, etc. His eyes are set privily against the poor. Naki. So again, Navi, Nabi, Nadi, this is all good. The Na sound. The I ending is like, I think similar to my. It's been a while since. Shafan. Safan. Hide from discovery. So it seems like in ancient Hebrew, there was a thing that the surplus was to feed the poor. But if you hide the surplus, like Joseph of Egypt did, remember Joseph of Egypt did it to save up for an oncoming famine and to actually feed the poor later. But it's so easy for a ruling class to use that information. Ari, lion or keeper, he lieth in wait. Arab. Look what poor is there. Poor is I, even I. The reset, the red in Spanish, the net. Reshet, to possess. So this is our modern system. The rich want to enslave us in nets, using financial instruments based on no value. It's a fabricated monetary system. It's called fiat. There's confidence there to trap you in your nets, secretly trapping you in your nets. So 7 is just going to melt away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I look at the creation story in this number 3.14159, To me, that is the fall. 9 is a restoration, but 7 is, it's the first time it appears. 7, 8, 3.14159265358979323846266. I don't know the rest. It's like 433832790 or something. This is kind of the end of what I know. 3 came together, became one in concept, created rules for the new paradigm, became one, designed the rules. The rules plus the design was good. Duality, you need light and darkness. Light and darkness with God is the true Trinity, the masculine and the feminine. You design, you create, you design. I think this is the creation of man. It is good. Man falls. You've got to implement some system so it is good again. I think this is the end game. So I don't know what those digits are. Let me look that up. That is plenty. We got to 0. Oh, oops, I got it right. So, if you want to know, you are here. Let's put a star. You are here. 0 is the reset. So we have to come to it's all good, and then there's got to be some sort of design, and then there's the reset. So if we're in a black hole, the design has to be how do we get out of the black hole, and then the reset is that event. I can go through a portal and escape the black hole, but what about this Earth? Why is the Earth being punished for what the people on the Earth did? So 5 is kind of the design number. So if you want to know the answer to the universe, look at your left or right hand. The answer is 5. And I would call that design. What the Chinese call that? This is the lucky number is linked to the 5 elements, which are wood, earth, metal, fire. A great practice. Oh, so yeah, that was the last thing. Let's look at Chinese calendar, 4 pillars, solar. How about just wiki? By era, show. Pillar. And the columns. Birth time, 8 characters, 8 words. That's interesting. Colors. So there were pentods in one of the ancient Chinese calendars. It was a solar calendar. The solar calendar begins in the spring when the light is coming to birth. When you're planting your seeds in the garden. And that scripture about relying on the moon for your calendar systems is not a correct system. So there have been dozens of calendars. constantly changes. So I want to know of a solar calendar. The greater light shall rule the day. The greater light rules time. It's the solar year. And so right there would be the beginning of the year. So with the spring, you got the equinox. And remember, pure brightness was the Qingming holiday. It's 15 days after the spring equinox. 15. An Eid, a fortnight. Yeah, the stem branches. So I would say the Chinese New Year used to fall on, maybe they backed it up. I have no problem with them anchoring to this date, a solar date, and then using the rule of 15, and because that's basically the average for the Chinese New Year today. But what they're doing is they're saying water is the first symbol, which I don't have a problem with. It's only one of the phases of the water, because there's another water before, because there's two phases of 15. But maybe that's how the East and the West meet. The far East and far West is the water. Okay, the number 7 is the dark oath, the blood oath. Got to answer. Whoa. 8 is to transcend that. That's very important to understand the Messiah death event. May God bless and keep you. Until next time. Shalom.